Hello everyone, and thanks for coming back to the channel. This is the MakerFire Armor 85 HD version 2. We didn't go through the specs last time because I had an immediate crash and damage, so let's do that now. Features 1103 10,000 kV motors, F3 flight controller with an OSD, 10 amp 4-in-1 ESC, 40 channel VTX. It's power switchable from 25 milliwatts to 100 milliwatts with smart audio. Now comes with Gem fan 4-bladed 40mm props. The main focus is a Caddx Turtle V2. It no longer comes with this battery tray. They use a strap instead. The FR Sky version comes with an XM. The new prop guards are less rigid and more durable. Canopy and camera housing are the same material. Camera mounts to the frame down here. SD card goes there. Record button is right there. Bottom carbon plate's 2mm. Motor post to motor post, I am getting 85mm. It weighs 71.5 grams. It now comes with a Crazy Pony 2S 500 milliamp battery, but I flew it with the RDQ 525 3S battery. So you may notice while we're sitting on the ground in the top right hand corner we had some lines. That's not uncommon when it comes to these Caddx Turtles. I have found that if we flash the firmware dated January 24th after you put it on the Caddx Turtle, and I'll have that link down in the video description, that has fixed the lines in the video a number of times for me. I do a little bit of a sloppy orbit just for fun around this for sale sign in case anybody wants to buy my neighbor's house. I know a few of you talked about that. I don't know what he's selling it for, but I have been inside and it is straight out of 1985. So if you like 1985 carpet and appliances and things of that nature, it's the house for you. It does have a pool, which my wife really wants and I do not. The pool is a nuisance in my opinion. It consumes the entire backyard. But enough of the house. I really feel strongly that this machine is just a cruiser. It's not going to do acrobatics very well. It weighs quite a bit, but that weight may mean for some of you that are wanting to do cruising type of flight footage that you have more leeway when it comes to wind. Because of that extra weight, the wind won't blow it around quite as much as it might something that's lighter. You know, oftentimes we see these things, they're coming in around 60 grams. So this one, you know, it's what, 12% heavier than most of the others. When you throw a 3S battery on it, then that way adds some weight too, and you probably have a little bit of a better shot at flying at more weather conditions with more wind. The footage itself, now correct me if I'm wrong here, but the footage I think looks to be the most stable. I'm not using an ND filter to stabilize the footage. This is straight how it comes. I didn't put anything fancy on this. Basically, you can't put an ND filter on this unless you were to cut out the ND filter out of how they have it in the housing and then stick it somehow onto the lens. That's a downside that we'll highlight a little bit on the bench when we get done with this flight. The flight time that we're going to watch does come in at just about 4 minutes dead on. You'll see it ends in a little bump and a crash, and that's not uncommon because I was trying to go underneath the pickup truck and I didn't do a very good job. And by the time I picked it up and tried to fly it, the low battery warning was already on, so that was the end of the battery. That's about what you can expect for this type of flight with the RDQ 525 3S battery. You'll see some bobbles. It's not a dead calm day, and I think if you're going to try to get real stable footage with pretty much any micro, you're going to need a pretty dead calm day. Yeah, you can put an ND filter on there, but if you have breezes that come up, say close to 10 miles an hour, it's going to be quite a stretch of trying to get some real stable footage. You know, where I live, it's pretty uncommon that we have days where the wind is actually less than 10. Flying in the backyard helps because that knocks down quite a bit of the wind with the houses and the trees and whatnot. But out here, especially out in the roadway area, the wind is much more predominant. And as you get at the end of the cul-de-sac, I think the wind kind of gathers. So that's something to kind of look at as far as the flight footage and any bobbles you might see. I will share my PIDs on screen in case you happen to have one. These are PIDs I came up with for these props, not the prior props that this came with. I still have a concern about the durability of the canopy because that did not change, and I flew it more after if you saw my original like quick look where I had a slight bump inside the house and the prop guards, all of the prop guards or ducts pretty much broke. I did fly it more after that, and I did get tangled up in a tree and I fell to the ground, and the canopy pretty much exploded, and I couldn't find many of the pieces to put that puzzle back together, and most of the pieces were pretty small. So if you're flying this, I would say you do want to do just stable cruising, and you need to be fairly confident in what you're doing or understand the risk that if you crash, it's very likely to break the canopy, which is part of the camera mount. Also, please remember this has an F3 board in it, so your future upgrades of Betaflight into 4 and future versions is going to be limited. It might be a light version of Betaflight or a feature-reduced version of Betaflight that you'll be able to get on this board. And there we have our crash, and I run into my neighbor's truck a few times, and we hit his shrubbery, so I have to go and pick it up. So as I talked about with that ND filter, with this particular mounting system, there's really no opportunity with the stock ND filters that are currently available to getting anything on. It's not going to go around this, and even if it did, it would just shoot it off, because this is pretty slick and it is pretty much forward. I left all the grass on because I just thought it looked fun. They did include the pigtail that's right over here, so you have free and easy access to that to change settings. I would recommend with your settings to going to auto record. That way you don't have to worry about pressing the button that's on the other side that I highlighted earlier. It will just start recording, and then after you land or crash, just give it a couple of seconds, then unplug it, and it will save the recording. Again, that firmware that I have found fixes the lines in the video is linked down in the description down below. I do suggest that not only if you have this or really any other version 2 Caddx Turtles that you download that firmware. I think it improves the flight footage. It also takes care of those lines. This canopy here that I talked about, this is all one piece. So if this breaks down here, you might be okay because it mounts down here. But then again, it might not. You might end up with some vertical wobbles in your camera as you're flying, so that could be a problem. You may have to glue this back together. You can see this area has actually been bulked up a little bit. If you can see this area right in here, they've added a bit more material. I'm not certain that's going to do us much good, especially if you come down in concrete. You can see there is a capacitor right in there. Hopefully you can see that if I can get the camera angle just right. There's a capacitor down there. That does help with your video noise. It's kind of a tight location to have your receiver, and they did shorten up the antenna. I do appreciate that. I've had this apart and back together, obviously. I could have placed this antenna pretty much anywhere I wanted, but they wrapped it up inside the heat shrink that you see in here and then made that nice and short. Of course, if you want more range, I would advise going to an XM Plus or some other receiver that has a better reception over a longer range. The video reception is okay. I wasn't necessarily impressed by it, but you can change it up to 100 milliwatts, which is what I was flying it at. The props do have the opportunity to put in screws to mount the props down if you don't like press-on props, because both the motors and the props have that ability, but none are included in the kit. But you may find with the version, when you buy version 2 as an all-in-one, that it does have those screws. It's just because I was shipped props and prop guards that I didn't have those. I actually got a new canopy as well because the old one exploded. They did use metal screws, hex screws right down in there for mounting. I was worried that when I saw pictures initially that those were nylon, and if this had any flex in it that would shift, snapping our nylon or at least stripping off the nuts. Unfortunately, the nuts are nylon, so those won't vibrate loose, but they're not going to be nuts that you can really tighten down tough. So don't get your gorilla hands on these and tighten them down. You'll end up stripping the nut threads out, and then you'll have to find some new nut threads. Camera mounts with a couple of metal hex screws here on each side. As you can see there, the wires stay nice and tidy, even though I've had it apart and back together. So yeah, as far as the construction go, my main concern is this canopy and this design for mounting the system, that we might have a breakage up in here, and then we might have some sadness because it is that same material that the prop guards are made of, and it did not take much of an impact to break the prop guards. The prop guards are a dramatic improvement in my opinion. I kind of wish, maybe they tried this and found that you couldn't get the stable footage. I wish that the prop guards and the canopy material matched this more durable material. I think that would make sure that the machine stays together longer. They have a nice thick 2mm base plate here, and you can see it's fairly well cut out, trying to keep the weight down. Of course, my weight's going to be a little bit more because I suspect this rubber weighs maybe up to 2 grams, maybe even more than that possibly. And they're now just shipping it with a strap that goes through these slots. So the battery strap they ship with isn't necessarily one you can get the battery real tight. So that's something that you're going to have to work on a little bit just in order to get the right pressure to get your battery secured, because if your battery's wobbling around, it sure won't help your footage. They do state on their website that it does come with a 2S USB battery charger. I don't know how that operates. I don't have one to test, so I can't tell you what that looks like or how it works because I don't see any pictures on their website included either. If you're getting one of these and you expect to do acrobatics, I would look somewhere else. But if you're looking for more cruising flight, this is something to consider. But again, be wary of that canopy and any possible damage that you may occur, because I'm not sure that will hold together. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thank you for watching.